So I'm out here weeding my garlic today, and it's time for me to get these garlic scapes cut. So stick with us and see what we're going to make with our garlic scapes today. So in case you're not familiar with what a garlic scape is, from hardneck garlic, you get a stalk that grows up once the leaves are producing out of the center, and then it forms this stem that ultimately could be a blossom. Now, we want to cut these off of our hardneck garlic so that the bulbs grow bigger and all the energy of the plant doesn't go up into creating a blossom. So today I'm going to get all these cut, and then we'll meet you back in the kitchen. So today we're going to be taking some of these garlic scapes and turning them into the ultimate garlic butter. I have all my garlic scapes cut off my garlic now, so those can just focus all their energy down on creating nice big bulbs for us to pick at the end of summer. So some of our garlic scapes are small. Some of our garlic scapes are very large, but we have a nice big pile of garlic scapes here. So the things we want to do is we want to make sure we rinse these off, and then we're going to cut them up. Now, you can do this all by hand if you want, and just dice it really, really small. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make these into pieces small enough that I can put them into a food processor, and I'm just going to process these up. And let me get these washed. We'll get these cut up, and then I'll show you when I'm done in the food processor how fine we've got these chopped down. So I've processed about half of my garlic scapes, and I have, let's see if I can scoop some out here for you. I've processed these down kind of like a relish consistency. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put them all in the bowl. If I find any really big pieces, I'll just pull those out. Now you can process these down even finer if you choose to do so. Like I said, this is kind of like how you would process peppers or onions down for a relish. I just used a regular food processor blade for this, nothing fancy. What I want to do once I have these all scooped into my bowl, like I said, I'll check for any extra large pieces, but it looks pretty good so far. We're going to put this in here, and then the next step is to get our butter and get that melted. So we ended up with about 4 cups of loosely packed garlic scapes once they were processed up. Now, the rest of the garlic scapes is not going to go to waste. We're going to take this and put it in a small container in the fridge, and we can use that in with a stir fry or in an omelet. There's a lot of different uses that we can take care of what we have left over. Now I have my pan. I'm just using my mom's old metal fudge pan. You can use, if you have special molds for butter, you can do that. You can even make little pucks using the silicone muffin tins if you want something fancy with these. But what we're going to be doing is we're going to do a 1-to-1 ratio of butter to the garlic scapes. So because I have 4 cups of the garlic scapes, I'm using the equivalent of 4 cups of butter. So if you wanted to just give this a try and you wanted to stick with just using maybe 1 stick of butter, which would be the equivalent of a half a cup, you would just use a half cup of your processed garlic scapes. Now, one thing that I hadn't mentioned when I did these, some people prefer to cut off the flowering head part. They find it a little too fibrous. I don't have any problems with it. Something else is sometimes on the lower portion of that stalk that you cut off, if they've been on the plant extra long, you might find it's a little bit tough, kind of like when you cut an asparagus. You can cut the tough part off the bottom and put that aside. But we didn't have that problem with ours today, so I've got it all processed up and we're ready to go. So now that my pan is lined and I have this ready, we're going to take our butter, get it into our double boiler, and start getting this melted down. Well, I have my double boiler and I've put water in the bottom. So the next thing for us to do is to take our sticks of butter and unwrap them, get them in the double boiler, and get that melted down. Now, once we have this melted, the plan is to take our garlic scapes and we're going to add those into the butter. And we're going to actually let those steep in the butter for about 10 minutes before we remove it from the heat. And what that's going to do is let the garlic flavor get all the way through the butter and make a really nice, rich flavor for that butter. So let me get this all unwrapped. We'll get this over to the stove and I'll be right back to talk about different ways you can mold your garlic butter. While our butter is melting on the stove, I wanted to talk a little bit about different ways that you can handle that butter depending on what shape you might want to put it in. So for us today, I'm just using a simple aluminum 9x9 by 2-inch deep pan. And I've got some parchment paper that I'm lining it with. Now, the reason I'm lining it with the parchment paper is it's going to make it a lot easier for me to get this butter out when it's done. Now, I'm doing it as one block. It's what I've done in the past, because for me, once this has been poured in, I'm going to put it either in the refrigerator or the freezer, let it set up, and when it's nice and hard, I can just pull that parchment paper out, and then I can cut that butter into the size blocks that I want. I can then individually wrap each one, put them in a freezer bag, put them in the freezer, and they normally last me for about a year. Now, there are other ways you can do this as well if you want to do something a little bit different. You can use a silicone muffin pan, and these are great if you want to make small pucks of butter. Some people like to use butter or garlic butter when they're going to sear a steak or a roast because it gives that extra flavor, or they want to maybe use it when they're doing another type of meal. So that works out well for that. You can also use cast iron molds. Then you just drop these in the freezer and the butter will come out pretty well once that's fully cold. You can also use your silicone muffin liners, whether you want to use the large ones or the smaller ones. You can put them in a muffin tin and then just fill these to the depth you want and then chill these, and then they'll come right out of the silicone. Now, something else you can do, and we've done our butter on cookie sheets in the past, it makes it a little thinner, but that is great if you want to get fancy and use cookie cutters. And you can use fancy holiday cookie cutters if you want. If you're going to do them as gifts, you can use small cookie cutters if you want to do something fancy for an event. Or you can even use biscuit cutters. They work out really well also. So it gives you some options. And if you're going to use a fancy cutter, you can cut your shapes out, and then whatever's left over, you can either just put into a tub to use yourself later, or you can warm it, spread it out again, and then recut. The butter is melted. I've added in our 4 cups of garlic scapes, and now I've set a 10-minute timer so that that can sit and those flavors can melt, and I'll be back with you as soon as they're ready to pour. We have our butter and our scapes all melded together. So now we're just going to carefully pour it into our pan. And I am being very careful because this is hot. And as you can see, it really fills that pan up quite a bit. So I'm just going to give this a little bit of stir to kind of make sure I even this out. Now I'm going to put this in the refrigerator overnight, and that will allow me to still be able to cut it into my shapes tomorrow. And you will see when I take it out that it's going to separate a little bit, but that's perfectly fine with me. I think it looks really pretty. So let me get this into my fridge and I'll see you in the morning. So this is one of the pieces. You can tell that it did separate out a bit. We've got more solid butter at the top and a mix of butter and our garlic scape at the bottom. Now, something you can do if you want to make this a little bit easier to work with is you can flip this upside down before you cut it. It might make things a little bit easier. I'm really not too worried about it. And now I'm going to take this, get it on a piece of parchment paper, and show you how I roll it up and prep it for the freezer. So I'm just going to set this in the middle of my paper, and then I'm just going to fold this over, roll it, and then fold my ends, kind of like folding a Christmas package. Do the same thing on this end, fold it in. And then I've got a nice stick of garlic scape butter that I can put into a Ziploc bag, put in the freezer, and have these anytime I want. I can use a whole stick, I can use half a stick, whatever the case may be. So let me get the other ones cut up and we'll be right back. I ended up with my 12 sticks of garlic butter, which is going to last me for the next year. Now, these I'm going to put into the freezer for my storage on these. And a quick suggestion for anybody else who tries to do this: if you're working in hot weather like we have here today, you might want to consider throwing your butter in the freezer for a little while before you take it out to cut. It will make the process a lot easier and you'll have a little less mess when you do that. So now that I have this set, let me get this in the freezer and I'll be right back. So now that I have all my garlic scape butter set, that's going to be what I need for the coming year, I'm going to use the rest of my scapes for other things. We'll use some for stir fries and they may get put in the freezer, and I'll be making some garlic scape powder that we can use with some as well. So if you'd like to see the garlic scape powder in a video, make sure you leave a comment. We'd also love to know, how do you use your garlic scapes from your garden? Let us know what your favorite recipes, your favorite ways of using them are. So until next time, everybody, make sure you take care and we'll see you soon.